Hey guys, Dark Skeleton here, and yesterday we were doing card reviews of about 63 of Cold's fan-made cards, and I think we got about 43 cards in. We covered the ghost stuff, covered the mana floating cards, and today we still have about 20 more to do, so let's just go ahead and get into it and knock them out for you guys. So first up we have the Mistweaver, which is a 5 mana 4/4 battle cry, restore 6 health. Now you gotta keep in mind that's 6 health to any target and not specifically your hero. You could compare this with a the Healbot. Yeah, that's what I'm looking for. The 3/3 Healbot, restore 8 health to your hero. And honestly, I would say that this card is a little bit of power creep onto that, because 6 health to any target is usually going to be more powerful than 8 health specifically to your hero, I think. I'd certainly rather have the 6 health, but then you're throwing on +1/+1 stats on top of that. The mech part is irrelevant because you don't run Healbot in aggro mech decks, which is basically the only mech synergy deck that exists. So, this is like a better version of Healbot in 8 out of 10 cases, I would say. Very few decks, I think, really care that much about the 2 extra healing over the +1/+1 stats. Maybe Handlock, I don't know. But yeah, very strong card. If it existed, would definitely see play. Oh, and it can also heal your minions, so really good for things like Ramp Druid. Okay, Mounted Gilblin. Gilblins are basically goblins as I understand them, but they're not. Well, Warcraft lore, not the master. Anyway, 4 mana, 4/5 rather. Inspire, gain stealth. Okay, so you probably know the 2 mana Gilblin that comes into play. 2/3 stats, has stealth on arrival. This gets stealth as Inspire, so it's a Yeti that inspires for stealth, which is interesting. It's not a big deal that it's a little bit stronger than the basic card. I mean, power creeps all over the place. Inspire gains stealth, that's interesting, but I don't really see too many important uses. Like, yeah, if you turn 4, play this guy, turn 5, you run it into a creature, like a piloted shredder, and it becomes a 4/1, and you want to protect it by using a hero power to gain stealth. I guess that's kind of a thing. So it's a alright card, it's solid. Probably pretty good in Arena. I mean, Yeti's good in Arena, so I don't see why this wouldn't be. Not too much else to say about that. I don't think this mechanic is too abusable. I could be wrong about that. Maybe it is actually, come to think of it, if you're going to play like a Shaman with Wind Fury. That might be a thing. Infinite stealth for days. Maybe. Okay, next up. Ooh, Murky. That's one of the most annoying heroes, rather, to fight in Heroes of the Storm. Also on Battle.net. I'm sure half you guys have played it. I'm actually liking that game a lot, by the way. But anyway, so this was like a BlizzCon pet you could get. So it's kind of like a mascot Murloc. 3 mana, 3/3. Taunt. Battlecry. Give all other Murlocs +1/+1. And that's a Battlecry, so it's permanent. I would say that is a pretty dang strong Murloc card. Obviously, you run 2 Murloc War Leaders in every Murloc deck ever. I think you would also run Murky in every Murloc deck ever. Which is better, the War Leader or the Murky? I would say Murky, because this stat buff is permanent, and the taunt also doesn't hurt. It doesn't really help. I think that's mostly for flavor, just because it's like Murky is so annoying, you just have to attack him. Which, you know, that's kind of how he plays in Heroes of the Storm. Really annoying guy, has like really low HP in that. But, you know, if he's just floating around, you usually snipe him. So yeah, makes sense. Kind of a fun card. Definitely would be a buff to Murloc decks. Okay. Outland, Lava Spitter, another dragon. 5 mana, 5/5. Battlecry, summon a Dragon Egg. Okay, now Dragon Egg is something, I think that's going to be down here in the set. Oh, no, wait. Dragon Egg is from Blackrock Mountain. Okay, so Dragon Egg. 1 mana, 0/2, like an Nerubian Egg, sort of. Whenever it takes damage, summon a 2/1 Dragon Whelp to your side of the field. So that's an interesting battle cry. The Dragon Egg is really only useful in very specific decks. It could be pretty good with Zoo. I play it in Warrior sometimes with like a Dragon Egg, Nerubian Egg Warrior that plays a lot like Zoo. So basically Zoo-like decks. Shaman is another one. And in that case, actually getting that Dragon Egg would be pretty dang good. So I could see you running this in like a Shaman deck for sure. Kind of reminds me of Tuskar Totemic, to be honest, which is 3 mana, 3/2, summon a random totem, which can get you Totem Golem, and Manatide Totem, and Flame Tongue Totem. But usually it's just going to get you a regular Shaman Hero Power Totem. I'd say this is actually a pretty strong card for decks that can abuse Dragon Egg. And there are quite a few out there. So a 5 mana 5/5 that also gets you a 1 mana creature that is actually pretty strong in certain circumstances and certain decks. That's a pretty strong and competitive card. Dragon Egg Shaman? Maybe. I mean, you probably wouldn't put the Dragon Egg in your deck, but you can make a Dragon deck that has Flame Tongue Totem, plays aggressively, and has this in there. Yeah, I could see that. Strong creature. Maybe even a little bit OP, to be honest. Okay, Overthrow. And I didn't skip one, right? Okay. Overthrow. Destroy an enemy minion that costs 6 or more. Okay, so it's a 3 mana removal. Kind of like putting a BGH in your deck. In a lot of ways it's better than like a Siphon Soul, because it's a lot cheaper, and really the only kind of cards you want to spend 3 mana on a removal for are going to be 5 mana cost, 6 mana cost, or more. Compare this to Assassinate. Assassinate can target anything. This can only target expensive minions. Your targets are going to include Tharzan, maybe Sylvanas, Ysera, Dr. Balanced, sometimes Ragnaros, Tyrion Fordring. There's quite a few. All kinds of giants. Any giant, actually, would be targetable by this. So you actually have quite a few targets for this. Now, would you run this over Big Game Hunter? I'd say kind of maybe in the same way that you would run Shadow Ward Death, that honestly you could run Overthrow. You know, not having to target those 7 attack minions, just like anything that has 5 attack, you know, a lot of them are going to have 6 mana cost or more. I'd say it's a solid card, pretty much on par with other classes. It would be a fine addition to Rogue, make the control archetype more of a thing, and I'd be fine seeing that. Parasitic Bloodworms, 2 mana 2/2 beast. How is a worm a beast? Okay, we'll just go with it. At the start of your turn, deal 2 damage to your hero. Inspire, shuffle a copy of this card into your opponent's deck. Alright, Is that good? I mean, the thing you gotta keep in mind, though, is that when you summon this and you give your opponent's deck 5 or 6 of these, he's also going to play that card and give you 5 or 6 of these. So one thing this could be a thing for would be a really, really, really stall game. Like if you have all the healing in the world, like you're playing a priest with tournament medic and you're healing for 4 each turn, and you just want to out-heal your opponent to death, maybe. But, I mean, taking 2 damage a turn and requiring it not only to be an Inspire effect, but also for them to draw it, for this really to get any benefit, and then they have to play it. I mean, sure, you can fill the hand up with this crap, and then they're like, all I have is Parasitic Bloodworms, I have no choice. But honestly, I think more often than not, this is going to backfire on you. I think for this to be good, it would have to be more like 2 mana, 2/2. Okay, so as the effect, deal 2 damage to your hero, but as like a battle cry, shuffle 3 copies of this into your opponent's deck. I think it would have to be more like that to be viable, because the Inspire effect, it's not really going to work like you would hope it's going to. I mean, your opponent might even just trade into this and then it's just a crappy 2/2. Or they could leave it on the board and then it's just a crappy 2/2 that makes you take damage. So this would be not a good card in its current state, but the idea is fun. The idea is fun, I'll give it that much. Okay, Phoenix. 6 mana, 6/3, beast. Deathrattle, shuffle this minion into your deck. For the same reason that Malorn is a bad card, this is also a bad card. It is a beast, but you know, Deathrattle, shuffle this minion into your deck is just really not that strong of an effect. Malorn actually has pretty decent stats. It's a 9/7 for 7 mana, which is alright, because, you know, Dr. Boom is a 7/7 that comes with 2/1/1 boom bots. And yeah, the boom bots have a sweet effect that makes Dr. Boom really, really strong. But, you know, Malorn's stats, given that he is playable infinite times, is actually not that bad. But it's still an unplayable card in basically anything but Arena, or when it happens to come out of, like, a unstable portal. This card's even worse, because you're paying 1 less mana to lose 4 health and 3 attack. It's 3 health minion is just not good. It's like, okay, Frostbolt it. It's gone into the deck for the rest of the game. Say goodbye to your tempo. Also, it's just pretty much statistically subpar to the Skeleton Knight, which is a 7/4. And yeah, I guess that's probably what this was balanced around, because Skeleton Knight is not guaranteed to go back to your hand. But, you know, if you win the joust, it goes to your hand and not your deck, so it's a lot more usable. You don't want to be drawing this card again and again. This is a weak draw and a weak play. So, completely unviable. Plagued Gargoyle. 4 mana, 6/6, that's crazy. At the start of your turn, this minion loses 1 health. Yeah, I mean, I see the drawback, but that is a crazy strong card. If your opponent does nothing, it becomes a 6/5, which is still super strong for a 4-drop. Most minions don't last 2 turns on the board in the first place, so this is going to, like, deal 1 damage to itself. Too strong. Maybe if it was lose 2 health a turn, that would be more reasonable, but even then, you know, just a 6/6, you could taunt it up with, like, what am I thinking of? Not Defender of Argus, Sunfury Protector, and then your opponent has to deal with the 6/6. And yeah, they could just ignore it, but this guy can hit for 6 damage, get really good trades. You can also heal it up with, like, a Darkscale Healer if you want to go that route and actually run that card, or an Earthen Ring Farseer, or Healing Spring Totem. I mean, if you have a Healing Spring Totem on the field, then this is just a 6/6 for 4 mana, which is nuts. I think this card, if it existed, would be played very often and be incredibly strong. Pounce. 3 mana, give your hero +5 attack this turn. Alright, kind of like a Firebolt for 3 mana that has 1 less damage. Yeah, compared to Bite, it doesn't give you the armor, it only gives you the attack. But this has more attack than Bite, and I think most cases the damage is what's more important. So you could play this in aggressive Druid decks. Heck, you could play it in pretty much any Druid decks. 5 damage for 3 mana is actually kind of nuts, especially considering you can use it to get a really good removal too. Taking the damage yourself isn't really that big of a deal against most decks. So yeah, just 3 mana, deal 5 damage. That's pretty good, and, you know, also has Violet Teacher synergy. I think this would be a card that would be played. Yeah, you could compare it to the 2 mana, deal 4 damage, Heroic Strike that Warriors have, which is good damage for 2 mana, 4 damage for 2, that's really good. Given, you know, it does have the downside if you have to hit something in the face for it to work with your hero power, or your hero rather, and that could mean, oh, you take 3 damage to deal 4 damage. But, you know, if Face Warrior was still a thing, they'd be running Heroic Strike, I think. So, aggressive Druid decks, I think, would run this. And I think Druid can afford it because they have good card draw engines, like Azure Drakes, like Ancients of Lore, and overall would be a strong card. Good to get this with Tharzan too, just gives Druids more options for finishing their opponents down, and that's scary. Pummel, 6 mana warrior spell. Destroy a minion. If it was damaged, deal 3 damage to the enemy hero. Okay, well, compare this to Crush, which is 7 mana. Destroy a minion. If you have a damaged minion on your side of the field, it costs 4 less. That card is unplayed. I don't think I've ever seen anybody but me actually run it. Maybe once in Arena or something like that. But Crush, you know, a lot of the times it's 3 mana, remove anything. And somehow that's not even good enough. So for 6 mana, I don't think this is going to be a thing. No, it won't be a thing. Sure, you get 3 extra damage to the enemy hero. That's not enough. That's really not enough for this to be a thing. And yeah, I get the comparison's probably compared to Siphon Soul, right? Siphon Soul, destroy a minion and heal 3 to your Warlock hero. That card used to be played, it used to be pretty good, but the meta's too quick for that right now. It's not a bad card. But the other thing is that Warlock spells are generally needing to be weaker than other classes because Warlocks just have a broken hero power. Warriors don't really have that. I mean, yeah, they can get a lot of armor, and that's really good versus Freeze Mage, but I definitely take a card draw over gain 2 life anyway. The situational thing here to deal 3 damage to the enemy hero, that's not that good, because you don't really want to use removal on a minion after it's already been damaged. That's why Execute costs 1, because you have to damage them first. So it's sort of like you have to run a creature in, you have to use a weapon swing, you have to use a whirlwind. You have to have a damage source coming from something else for Execute to be used. And Execute is really good because it's 1 mana. But I don't think you would play this for the, oh, I'm going to pummel this 6 health Dr. Boom to get 3 extra damage into the enemy hero. This effect doesn't really benefit the control aspect, but you would run this in a control deck if you were going to run it at all. But it's just too much mana. I mean, like, I'd rather just take Brawl. Brawl and Execute just outperform this in every way. Crush even outperforms this in pretty much every way. So it would be a trash tier card, to be honest. Rally the troops, 5 mana. Put 2 minions from each deck into the battlefield. That is a dangerous effect to play around with. Ancestor's Call. Put 1 minion from your hand and 1 minion from your opponent's hand into the field for 4 mana. You may know of the Malygos bullshit that people play that around. I think people would try the same thing here. Can Paladins abuse Malygos as much as a Warlock can? Well, turn 9 you play this. Let's say you have very few minions in your deck because you're just playing spells like Muster for Battle. Maybe you have a few minions, but they're all kind of early game, and then you go for the spell control, Consecrations, Hammer of Wrath, etc. Then you play this when you are pretty confident about getting Malygos onto the field. 5 mana for the Malygos, and then they have 2 minions on the field plus whatever they had before. Then you play Consecration or Hammer of Wrath from your hand, Consecration or Hammer of Wrath for like 7 or 8 damage, clear their entire board, have Malygos on the field plus another minion, and you win the game. Yeah, this is just asking for Malygos to be in Paladin. Maybe that's what Cold wants here, I don't know. Too scary for an effect. I would not feel very comfortable having this in Paladin. I think, you know, it's more reasonable in Shaman because you have to draw it with Shaman. With this, you only have to have it in your deck and you get 2 shots at it as well. I think this would be like the better version of Ancestor's Call. Plus, you know, if you already have a bunch of minions on your field, you could use this to force your opponent to have minions. Maybe use this in conjunction with something like, well shoot, what's it called? The 5 mana card draw that gets you 2 cards but costs 1 less for each minion that died this turn. That could be a good synergy, but yeah, I just fear the Malygos, or heck, Baron Geddon might even be kind of crazy here. You know, get Baron Geddon, just fry all your opponent's face hunter minions. Whew, very dangerous card to play around with, lots of potential for abuse. Okay, retreat. 1 mana, return a friendly minion to your hand. Okay. So it's a lot like Shadow Step, but worse. Shadow Step is a 0 mana, bounce a card back to your hand, and that minion costs 2 less to play. This costs 1 mana and doesn't get you any mana discount. So this is just a bad Shadow Step. And yeah, I get the idea that, you know, rogues are the masters of returning things to their hand. They're like the subtlety, tricky rogues, you know. I don't see how this really belongs in Paladin, though. I'm not even sure what you'd really want to use it on. Like, what's it called? August Peacemaker, maybe? Or Peacekeeper, rather. Yeah, to get... well... No, because you could just run Humility instead of this, actually. Seems kind of like a pointless card and doesn't really belong in Paladin either. Maybe there's some potential for use somewhere? But, I mean, Shadow Step isn't even run, and Shadow Step is a much more abusable card. Rogues have tons of sweet battlecry effects, like SI7 Agent, combo deal 2 damage. So, you know, you replay your SI7 Agent, heal it back to 4 HP, and deal 2 damage as it comes into play for 1 mana. That's pretty good, but not good enough for Constructed. So, this would be unplayed. It's just weird. No, I think it encroaches too much on rogue territory a little bit. Okay, Rodeo Rocketeer, 4 mana, 5/3. Charge, Deathrattle, deal 3 damage to your adjacent minions and your hero. Wow, that's kind of a drawback. Or 5/2 even. So obviously you would use this as a finisher. And only a finisher. So this is kind of like Leroy, when Leroy was 4 mana. Except 1 less attack, because you wouldn't play the Leroy unless you were gonna have lethal, or unless you were gonna combo it with Unleash the Hounds and then have lethal, or pretty close to it. Okay, I mean, I think it's maybe okay to have a 5 damage charge with a death rattle effect like that, because, you know, you drop the damage by 1, it's not so bad. 5 damage is still a lot, so maybe it could be like a 1-up in face decks. This death rattle effect is a little bit interesting, though, because you could also intentionally have minions that you actually want to blow up to the sides, such as Nerubian Eggs. So you actually play Nerubian Eggs, and then you run in the Rodeo Rocketeer. Use the Rodeo Rocketeer to trade, and 5 damage is a pretty good amount to trade with. Blow up your Nerubian Eggs, activate them, then you have 2 4/4 Nerubian Eggs on the board, and you just killed something for 4 mana that basically becomes like a fireball. Now, that's probably not, you know, the best use. It's like, or you could just have a Dark Direwolf Alpha in your deck and then use a fireball or like a implosion or something like that. So this is probably more of a face card. I think it's fine to have some kind of common alternative to Leroy, but, you know, this might be better than Leroy in most cases. It's a little bit dangerous. I don't know if this would be balanced or not. Simon Murky. I don't actually know who that is. Must be some character from the newer expansions of WoW. Anyway, 5/4 for 5 mana. Battlecry. If your opponent has more health, deal 3 damage. Alright, so it's literally a comeback card. Would be pretty good for things like Handlock, honestly, because Handlock's always behind in health. Also pretty good for something like Priest, a really slow Priest deck. I think this is a pretty neat effect, actually. It's not really necessarily strictly stronger than like a Blackwing Corruptor, which just requires you to have a dragon in the hand to deal 3 damage, because, you know, this is another conditional that's a little bit requirement. You have to be playing a control deck that's taking more damage or life tapping for more damage. And then it's the same, it becomes a Blackwing Corruptor in that case, which is a very strong card, but it's not game breaking necessarily. Probably okay for the game. Maybe one of those cards that gets played a lot in control decks. I mean, I could see just like Harrison Jones being straight up replaced for something like this. Because usually dealing 3 damage and killing a minion off is more important than just killing a weapon. To a degree. So, yeah. Would be okay for the game, I think. Sky Warden, 4 mana, 3/3. If you're holding a dragon, gain +1 attack and Wind Fury. Alright, so this would become a 4/3 with Wind Fury for 4 mana. And because it's 4 mana, I would say that this card is bad. It's not charge +1 attack into Wind Fury. Like, Raging Worgen is basically this. The condition is different, yeah, in Rage, and that might be a little bit harder to trigger than holding a dragon. But for either of those cards to do anything, they have to survive a turn. So if Raging Worgen survives a turn, that means that your opponent didn't have a minion to trade into it perfectly, which either means they have no minion, or they have minions that are too weak to trade into this because they don't want to enrage it. The same problem applies here. People would only leave this alive if they had no minion that could get a good trade on it, kill it off, or if they had no removal for it from the hand, like a Frostball. And in that case, I would say this is on par with Raging Worgen. The +1 attack, the condition rather, is not really that big of a deal. Like the Enrage versus this condition, I'd say almost on par. Sure, the Raging Worgens is a little bit more of a nuisance. But given that this has to survive, in actual practice, it wouldn't be that different. And because this is 4 mana, this is just a really bad Raging Worgen. And Raging Worgen is one of those fair, mediocre cards that isn't run at all outside of Arena. And for 4 mana, a Raging Worgen would be absolute trash. So this is going to be absolute trash in all forms of play. I mean, sure, Chromie could reduce this to a 2 mana 3/3, but I don't think you play the synergy decks like that just to make this playable. This probably should be 3 mana, honestly. And then I still don't think it would be played in many cases. Spectral Tiger, 6 mana, 5/7 beast, can't be targeted by spells or hero powers. Alright, so what immediately comes to mind is Houndmaster, because then this becomes a 7/9 that can't be targeted by spells or hero powers, but can be BGH'd. Now a 7/9 that can't be polymorphed, can't be fireballed, is crazy strong. Of course, BGH is going to be your downfall there. As a 5/7, it's probably a little worse than Spectral Knight, which is a 5 mana 4/6. I think paying the extra mana to get that 1 extra HP is kind of iffy, and as a 5/7, it's weaker than Boulder Fist Ogre. What is it that Pit Fighter is better than Spectral Knight? I think I would actually say so in the majority of cases. Maybe not all cases, but definitely not all cases, but in a lot of cases. And Pit Fighter, I think time is showing it's not really strong enough for Constructed, or someone just hasn't put together a genius deck to make it super good yet. But it is really good in Arena. This would be really quite good in Arena, kind of along the same lines of Boulder Fist Ogre. In Constructed, maybe it could be a thing in like a Control Hunter deck, because you make it a 7/9 taunt that can't be targeted by spells or hero powers, and that is a serious problem for any deck that doesn't have BGH in their hand. Like, I don't know how you deal with that. That might be strong enough. Like, giving an untargetable minion taunt is a crazy strong effect. That's one of the reasons why Arcane Nullifier X22 has such weak stats as a 2/5 for 4 mana. And then, even then, it's almost playable. So this could be playable in Control Hunter. Maybe. You know, turn 10, make a 7/9 untauntable, and also get a 4/3 on the top of that. I could see that. Just have to be careful about BGH, though. Now, if this was a 6 mana 4/8, and then you make it a 6/10 untargetable, that would be nuts. So it's probably actually a good thing that this is 5 attack. Okay, surprise attack. 3 mana rogue spell, deals 6 damage to the minion that attacked last turn. So this is basically, okay, take the damage and then blow up probably the biggest minion on their board, because usually, well, no. I was going to say usually people attack with the biggest minion last, but that's against secret decks, you know, in case of Get Down, in case of Vaporize, or other cards like that. This just kind of it requires your opponent to play bad. So if surprise attack ever became a thing, I think all that would happen is that people would start attacking with their weakest minions last against a rogue, in which case this card would become really bad. So this card against a skilled player is only going to be good if your opponent has 1 minion on the board and chooses to attack. And then even then, it doesn't even destroy minions outright, it only deals 6 damage. So this is actually a really weak card in practice. Should probably be destroy the minion outright to begin with. And, you know, even then maybe it could be a 2 mana spell. And then maybe, I think at 2 mana it could be playable. But, you know, 6 mana, 6 damage for 3 mana that requires your opponent to play badly is asking a lot. So, it's maybe 2 mana deals 6 damage to a minion. That could be more fair. 2 mana destroy minion is pretty strong. Deal 6 for 2 mana. That seems more reasonable. Okay, Torch. Deal 8 damage to the enemy hero, 1 mana, overload 2. Holy shit. Really? Okay. Up to this point, the cards in this fan-made set have been fairly balanced. This card is absolutely game-breaking. Here's why. You play this as a finisher, the overload is meaningless. 8 damage for 1 mana. And you can also play this in Malygos decks, in which case it becomes 13 damage for 1 mana, and you could even play that without Tharzan. In many cases, you could be playing this and not even need Malygos to finish your opponent off. You could play this in Mech Shaman, and Mech Shaman would be happy to draw into this. Because Lava Burst is 5 damage that always goes to the opponent's face in a Mech Shaman if they can help it, with Overload 2 for 3 mana. This is 8 damage for 1 mana plus Overload 2. 8 damage for 1 mana, 5 damage for 3 mana. Yeah, math. So this card is absolutely insane, and should at least cost 3 mana. Because 8 damage for 1 mana will basically make Shaman the best class in the game, and everybody will play Spellburn Shaman. I get the idea is to make that just a little bit more viable. I don't really know how much more it needs though, because although it's kind of an unpopular deck right now, the Elemental Destruction Malygos Spellburst deck, you know, that's played sometime and I think has hit Legend actually. You add this to the game and it becomes #1 Legend. Easy. I don't know what to say about that. Probably the most game-breaking card I've seen in a while. Yeah, okay. The idea is fun, though. I mean, I get it. Making Spellburn really cool, really fun to play. Maybe even Gadget Sand Auctioneer for more card draw. It's fun, but game-breaking. Okay, Twilight Shadow Drake. 6 mana, 4/5. If you're holding a dragon, set a minion's health to 1. Right. So, holding a dragon, basically to play Equality. 6 mana, 4/5. So, it's like playing a Yeti and Equality with 1 card. The 6 mana cost, I think, is necessary here. If it was 5 mana or 4 mana, it would be too strong. That is a really strong effect. Does somewhat require you to have another way to ping for 1 damage for this to really be good. But I think at 6 mana, 4/5, this is actually pretty well balanced. Would be pretty good in decks like Mages, because Mages can always ping for 1, and then you just play this on turn 8, and basically you get to remove something, paying 4 extra mana for the removal, and then you end up with a 4/5 for 4 mana. And that's actually sort of fair. Yeah, sort of fair. Also requires you to be playing against a deck where setting the minion's health to 1 is really meaningful. Not so good against like a Secrets Paladin, unless you're specifically going to target the Mysterious Challenger. Yeah, but then it's just going to get redemptioned anyway, so, okay. Okay, this may actually be the last card. Nope, there's a few more. Altruxion. I have no idea who that is. 9 mana, 4/12 dragon. I do want more 4/12 dragons in the game. At the end of your turn, restore 1 health to all friendly minions and 4 health to your hero. Alright, okay, so it's like kind of in the power vein of Yogg-Saron, except Yogg-Saron gets your cards and makes you basically unstoppable in the being able to keep playing stuff realm. This makes you kind of unstoppable in the keeping your hero alive. However, generally when you play this, you're not going to have that many extra minions on your board, so the 1 health to friendly minions is kind of irrelevant, and then it becomes a 4/12 that restores 4 health to your hero. I'm not sure that's actually strong enough to justify the 9 mana. I mean, when you think of Yogg-Saron, drawing a super powerful card that's really mana efficient is kind of stronger than 4 health to your hero. And Yogg-Saron is often too slow. The good thing is that this card will keep you alive. I think maybe the amount of health should be more than this. I think 6 might be more along the lines. I think just like 6, and then maybe you can keep the 1 health to friendly minions. It's kind of irrelevant. 6 to a hero, then they have to respond to this. Yeah, I think 5 or 6 would be a slightly better point. I mean, you don't want to make it too much, because then it's just impossible for a Face Hunter to win at that point. But, I mean, Face Hunters have already lost if the game's gone to turn 9. So, just making sure you don't die after you should have won. You know, probably something that should be there. Also, a decent counter to, like, Freeze Mages, if it healed for a little bit more. Probably wouldn't be run in this state. Just doesn't do enough for a 9-mana minion. Vindicated Borvon. Equip a random weapon. 6/6 for 7 mana. Alright, pretty cool effect. Getting a random weapon is pretty strong. 6/6 that gives you a random weapon. There are a lot of really strong weapons. Gorehowl, Doomhammer, Death's Bite. Also, this allows you to get a weapon with a non-weapon class like Priest. It doesn't give your opponent a weapon. I think that this card is probably on the strong side. I think it could be 8 mana, honestly, and still be a thing, maybe. I mean, what's the average mana cost of a weapon? I think it would be higher than 2. I think it would be about 3. So, to get a weapon for 1 mana that can be played in any class is pretty strong. It's pretty dang strong. So, yeah, maybe this should be an 8 mana creature, or be like a 5/5 for the sake of balance. In this current state, I think it would be really strong and run in a lot of decks, especially board control decks. Water Revenant. 4 mana, 4/4, deal 1 damage to all frozen characters. As an Inspire effect. Okay, so that makes me kind of think Cone of Cold decks. So you play Cone of Cold, then you drop a Water Revenant, or you have Water Revenant on the field, then you play Cone of Cold and Hero Power, get some extra damage in. Maybe you even run something like this in Freeze Mage, where you just, you throw Frost Nova and then you start Hero Powering with the Water Revenant. Maybe has some applications. Obviously a Frost Mage deck. Is it broken? Maybe not. Does have the added benefit of being able to work on heroes too, so if there's some kind of Frost Burn deck, like Ice Lance, Water Revenant, Hero Power, something like that. Well, I mean, obviously you Frostbolt the face first. It depends how many frozen effects you can find. If you run this with Snow Chugger and Water Elemental, no, maybe, I think this would make Water Elemental really good. You know, you freeze it with the Water Elemental, and then your Hero Power basically becomes deal 2 damage to that minion. Could be a thing. Could be a thing. I like this card. I like this card a lot, because it makes a Frost deck that isn't specifically Stalling Freeze Alexstrasza Mage possibly a thing. It could also make that deck better as well. And maybe that deck does need some help, because like I was hearing like the commentators, the casters, and some of the pros talking about it. And Freeze Mage, not quite as dominant as it used to be, because there are just a lot of decks that blow it out of the water. So maybe it does need a little bit of help. Okay, Yogg-Saron, and this is the last card, because there's nowhere else to go from here. 10 mana, 6/11. At the start of your turn, give your other minions +2 attack. Okay, the effect is interesting. However, this card is bad in its current state, and the reason for that is that it's a 10 mana minion that does nothing when it hits the field. In order for this to work, it has to be the start of your turn. So instead, I feel that this should be at the end of your turn, so that when you play Yogg-Saron and you have a board, it's guaranteed to give them a permanent +2 stat buff before this dies, before this gets polymorphed or whatever. A 6/11 stat line is fine. I mean, you kind of compare it to any of the 412 dragons, gets +1 stat over them. And their stats are pretty good, I guess. Pretty reasonable, anyway. But this effect needs to be more impactful. So at the very least, this should be at the end of your turn, give your minions +2 attack. But, you know, even then, I feel like it needs to do more than that. Because your 10 drops, you're talking about Deathwing, blow up the entire field. And have a 12/12. Varian Wren, draw 3 cards and put any of those 3 cards that are minions into the battlefield immediately. Those effects just strike me as way more epic and impactful than Yogg-Saron in this current state. So, at the very least, should be basically Bloodlust all your minions at the end of your turn and the end of every turn. Because if you play this on turn 10, it's going to be removed for 3 mana, and you're going to be a very sad pony. Very, very, very sad indeed. 10 mana to do nothing is just not going to cut it. Alright, so that's all for the new set of cards, once again, presented by Cold. He made them for me and let me review them, so thanks to him for allowing me to do that. I've been Dark Skeleton, thank you for watching, and I will catch you all in the next video.